My last video I published was about the realization that YouTube may actually be going toward a direction for me in terms of the channel growth and income potential of earning over $2,000 or euros per month from YouTube itself. And that is kind of predicted to be the case basically over the next 12 months already, but more importantly, starting from that point forward more so. Now, if you haven't seen that video will be linked in the description, so you can check that out. Now here, I want to continue this topic of discussion and thought and kind of like ruminate a little bit with the idea of what my life looks like or would look like if YouTube actually was doing that already, and also how that may actually impact my life. Now, one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because I grew up in a time where YouTube was a space where not every single channel had a single niche and topic and only focused on those things. But YouTube was a platform of individuals sharing their journey and documenting their life, sharing their experiences and all of those things. And that is kind of like what I also want to continue to do as I am building this platform, with the tutorials and technical videos, but also with more personal stuff, because I think that that is incredibly important to also talk about these things that not everybody wants to or likes to talk about. Now, as a quick recap, I recently looked at the statistics of Social Blade, which is a platform where you can look at different statistics of different YouTube channels, as well as Instagram accounts, TikTok, and so on. And there you can see how those channels have performed in the past. But what I was specifically interested in that case was the future predictions which they are doing. Now, my channel predictions basically said that by the beginning of 2023, around end of January, beginning of February, I would actually reach around 20,000 subscribers and also 5.5 total channel views all time. Now, those numbers in return, specifically the view count, basically gave me a baseline to calculate how much money YouTube advertising is supposedly going to be for me in the next 12 months, because right now I have a RPM, which is the money that I earn per 1,000 views, of 6 euros. And calculating that based on the view estimation, that would mean that I would make around 20,000 or 24,000 euros within the next about 12 months. Now, I want to continue this thought experiment and think about what that actually would do for me in my life, because I oftentimes have a struggle to still move forward. Now, that may be a recurring theme throughout the next few topics, because I want to really work through this. And maybe this is partially some kind of a therapy for myself to explore these things and share them with you. But I also hope that it is in some kind of way inspiring or helpful for you to hear someone talk about their struggle and how I'm trying to deal with those things. Now, the baseline is that I always wanted to have an income stream that I built from a business which is not a service type business, which I do as a freelancer. And in that realm, I have never crossed that threshold of 1,000 or even 2,000 euros per month. So this time around, YouTube is actually the first platform or the first project that I have done in my life, which is not freelance work, where I am looking forward to actually crossing over that threshold. And that is extremely exciting to me, because that in itself means at some point I will be able to completely stop doing client work which I don't like to be doing, or where I'm not paid the amount of money that I would like to earn in those instances, and potentially shift all of my focus toward my own projects that I have set out for myself. Now, the interesting thing is that over the last few months and maybe 1.5 years or so, I basically started already to scale back client work as much as I could, so that I would have more energy and more focus toward the making of YouTube videos, as well as some of my software projects every now and then. However, that also was always with the kind of thought process that YouTube was already earning a part of my income, but it wasn't necessarily going to be a life-changing amount in those moments. And as of right now, my YouTube channel is yielding around 600 euros per month in YouTube ad revenue. And if I add also the affiliate earnings that I do with the links from Amazon, as well as sales from other products, as well as services, then I'm usually around about at 1,000 euros, combining that with AdSense and the affiliate marketing. that is an amount which gives me the opportunity to be able to basically fully focus on this, because it is my break even, where my living expenses of housing, transportation, food, insurances, and all of those things are basically taken care of. So that is extremely exciting. However, weirdly enough, I still sometimes struggle to sit myself down, make these videos, and work on making that reality real. And again, that is part of the reason why I am making these videos, to work through those thought experiments. Now, an interesting aspect to this is that, yeah, 1,000 or 1,200 euros is my break-even point, where I can actually basically focus 100% of my energy on making YouTube videos and all of those things. But that actually just amplifies, for example, the struggles that I may have to go through in terms of actually putting myself out there even more. And there is a bunch of things that come with that. For example, opening yourself up to criticism and comments that you might get. And some people have a really easy time to stay away from those or ignore the bad ones or those kind of things. But in some ways, that's not necessarily something that has been extremely easy for me in the past. So that is one of the interesting things that now I have to work with more and more. The other thing is that earning more also comes with potential stigma. And I know that all of those, or most of that, is in my head. And a lot of people are earning more than 1,200 or 3,000 euros. And if you're running a business, the numbers that you will have to work with are usually, if it's a successful business, more in the realm of 10,000, 20, 100,000 euros per month. So those numbers should not be a problem. But in some ways, I have to still work all those out as well. But I think that the majority of this topic I will shift toward a different video, in which I want to talk about these money beliefs and limiting thoughts that I found myself believing or thinking, and which I'm trying to shift out of more and more. But for now, one of the major things that I found was that I am tying a lot of my happiness and the ability to relax and also enjoy certain parts of life to money. And the amount that YouTube yields right now is not necessarily the one that also will give me peace of mind already. However, thinking about what the changing effect may bring, and with the numbers that were estimated based on the Social Blade statistics, earning 2,000 euros just based on the YouTube ad revenue is a complete game changer. However, I also have to play a mind game in that realm, because the statistics or the predictions are saying that by the end or by the beginning of 2023, I will have reached those 5.5 million views on the channel. And that means that I will have gained about 4 million views. I usually gain about 6,000 euros per 1 million views. So that's about 24,000 euros in the next 12 months. But not right now. So one, that means that toward the end of the year, the income is supposedly going to grow more substantially. But for now, it is still going to maybe just be a couple $100 or euros more every single month. Now that is really something to work with, because I am not making the money that this prediction is going to say I am going to make right now. I'm not going to make that money this month. However, I have to kind of start thinking as if YouTube would already be paying that money. This is an interesting thing to consider, because it's kind of in the realm of visualization and manifestation without being all too spiritual. Basically, I have statistics telling me a certain result. Those are, however, not here yet. But to actually get there, I will kind of have to work with the reality of that, which I want to achieve. Now, of course, I can't spend money that I don't have yet, which may or may not be a true statement, because of course I could also take out a credit and basically invest into the next few months, because I have those beliefs strong enough that the money will come and that will be paid back. Now, that is something else to consider. But what it gives me more of is the consideration of how do I treat a business or an income source if it is already providing a certain amount of that income. And of course, I have to have a strong belief in the reality of said income source to actually be able to produce that income, Because if I don't have the belief, it will become really, really hard to just put in the same amount of energy as I would if I already had those numbers for real in my hands. And that's one half. But the other half is actually then also taking that reality and putting in the amount of work that I think is necessary to potentially even grow beyond those expectations or future predictions. Now, I've sat down the last few days to try and figure out how I want to move forward throughout the next few weeks and months to actually work at that goal and to work my mind as well as the actual thing itself. Because it is very much an emotional as well as an intellectual as well as a productivity journey that I am embarking on here. Because in the past, I had a lot of ideas and I had a lot of goals and I set those out for myself, but I didn't necessarily achieve those. So I have to work with that aspect of not necessarily trusting in my ability to be able to achieve a certain thing. I have to redevelop the strength in that part, and maybe having the income source and the success of YouTube that I am currently experiencing is actually quite helpful to develop that part because, as I have mentioned in my previous video, YouTube and that income source in itself is the most powerful and the most successful project that I have ever undertaken. And that in itself is quite strengthening. But there are, of course, also other aspects to work on, like, for example, the aforementioned insecurities around money, being able to earn wealth and become really wealthy, potentially live a life with more luxuries and all of those thoughts. So that all has to be wrapped somehow and worked through. Because, of course, there's a part that can crush through those things and just do it anyways in those things, but that would be ignoring the emotional side of myself, and I'm just not that way. I don't know if that's something that may ever work or has worked in the past, but I have certain things that are going on inside of me, in my head, certain things that I have learned through childhood and so on and so forth, and I am constantly working on rewriting my own playbook, so to speak. Now, what are some of the practical things that I have recently done with this new thought of YouTube actually being something that earns me 2,000 euros every month for the next 12 months? One of the things was rethinking how I would actually see my life pan out or what I would be able to do with that kind of income. Now, as I've mentioned before, around 1,200 euros is the amount of money that I need for my basic necessities. Earning 2,000 euros per month, of course, you have to take taxes and all of those things into consideration, but shifting toward that amount of money will give, for example, more security in certain areas, like the investments that I'm currently doing with the new camera that is coming end of the month, as well as the laptop that I bought last year. And those things will basically work at stabilizing my bank account. And that, in turn, might actually help me relax more into that feeling and also bring me out of that area of lack and more into the power of prosperity in some kind of a way. Other thoughts and considerations are that, for example, going out for a dinner might be an actual feasible thing that I then can also work toward. And by doing so, potentially actually also lifting off a lot of the burdens that I have carried around with myself. All of that kind of brings me to a world of more ease and flow, as things are not as tight as they have been over the last few years, where I have spent a lot of money on reinvesting into the business, but rarely, if ever, spent money just on myself for, let's say, going to a massage or getting a haircut or potentially going out for dinner, watching a movie in the cinema and stuff like that. So those things might actually come back, and with that, I hope to feel a lot more lightness, a lot more joy, like I mentioned, flow as well. And on that note, also get more ease and just playfulness with the content creation that I am going through as well. Now, if you're in some kind of a way in a similar situation, maybe these questions that I have been asking myself and journaling about in the past few weeks help you as well. One of the first ones is, what will my life look like if YouTube is actually earning me 2,000 euros per month? And just write out that idea in terms of, like, how will this actually look like? What could this change in my life? And the interesting thing about these 2,000 euros is that it is not just the basic necessities. It is actually a little more than that, because for such a long time, I was bound to just making barely enough so that I actually can go through with the next month and don't go into debt. However, going over that threshold and actually earning just a little bit more than necessary is something that is completely a different thought process. Now, the next one would be, what could I change if this already was real? And that, of course, goes back to this aspect of how would I treat this business if it would already yield the results that I am now seeing for the future. And that changes in some kind of a way my approach. And that is incredibly powerful. The next one would be, what would I want to do with that kind of an income? So how do I want to improve my life? And seeing those things as motivation to actually work toward that goal and potentially even go further than that. And lastly, how do I want to design my life? In terms of how do I want to set it up? What do I want to have in my life? Who do I want to have in my life? What kind of an activity do I want to do on a regular basis potentially? Maybe even where do I want to live? That's a big topic for me and Nicole as well, as we are more and more developing these skills and businesses that we are building. Now, there are 2 more questions that are along these lines, which I want to discuss in the next video. And those are, what do I have to do to actually 10x this goal? And maybe as a precursor to that, what would my life look like and how would my life be impacted if I were to 10x that goal? And now, of course, with that, we are talking not about 2,000 euros per month from AdSense, but 20,000 euros per month from AdSense. And that's a complete shift of the mind in terms of what that actually would be making possible. It's a complete change in what I would be able to afford in terms of equipment, potentially building a team, living in different places, traveling more, and all of those things. It's a complete mind shift, but it also is a complete mind shift in the realm of how to get there, because it may actually help to refocus yourself on a completely different path. But again, that's for another video. Now, if this exploration was helpful for you in some kind of a way, please let me know in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you, because I am, as I said, doing these mostly for myself, but also think that other people might find these helpful to explore for themselves and figure out where you want to go and see where someone in my shoes right now with around 6,400 subscribers is and what I am experiencing here. Now, with that said, I hope you have an amazing day. I hope to see you in one of my other videos. I will have 2 of them here on the screen, and see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.